Hey guys, you are watching Tech Radar Live. I'm Basil and today's show is all about what to look out for when you're buying your next smartphone. Now this is a question we always get asked. Oh, what smartphone should I get? I have this phone and I want to upgrade. This is exactly why we're doing this as a live show. So you can get your questions in the live chat and we can answer them live. Around that, it's all going to be framed with some key points. This isn't going to be specific to any phone, but general buying guide tips such as what kind of screen size to go for, depending on who you are, what kind of screen technology, what kind of camera, what kind of battery capacity, etc. So like I said, this is a live chat. Quick shout out to everyone in the chat room. Akash Singh, especially you, seeing as so far you were the only one who's commented. Right, but I'm going to start with the design of these phones. And so you're going to get a phone. You want to make sure that it fits comfortably in your hand, in your pocket. If you have smaller hands, smaller pockets, don't want to be putting your phone in a bag, you'll want to opt for something between 4 to 5 inches. If you want something a little bit bigger, 5 to 6 inches. To put it into context, the Samsung Galaxy A10, which is probably the biggest phone you're going to want to pick up right about now, is 6.3 inches. And like I said, that even me, I'm 6'4", tall guy, I have trouble getting it in my pocket. In addition to that, if you want to thwack a case on it, that's going to add additional size. So size needs to be a big consideration because obviously it'll affect the practicalities of using your phone day to day. A general phone that has really made everyone feel very comfortable when using it is the Samsung Galaxy S8. Thanks to the fact it has very small bezels around the screen, its 18:9 aspect ratio and its curved display, it manages to get a really large 5.8-inch display into a small, relatively hand-holdable size most people like. The chat room has exploded and so I'm going to jump in there to give some shout outs. Omar Kasim says, I say hi to you even. Hugh James, hey Hugh James. Hugh James asks a question. I've highlighted it and I will come back to it shortly. Stephen Finelli retracted his message, but shout out Stephen nonetheless. Aditya Varma, DJ PRS, Utsav Shrestha, Nortos. You're just all awesome, firing questions in left, right and center. But I haven't finished talking about the design yet, so I'm going to carry on doing that. What you'll want to make sure is that if the phone doesn't have a headphone jack, you're well catered for with Bluetooth headphones. You'll also want to make sure that if you need a water resistant phone, you pick one up. The numbers and letters to look out for are IP67 or 68. That refers to the dust and the water sealant, so it's how it's going to survive a dunk or a splash. IP68 is generally the most waterproof, effectively, phone that we'll see on the market nowadays, which can survive 1.5 meter dunking for I think it's around 30 minutes or so. Most flagships at the moment actually are, but not all of them, water resistant in some respects. Generally, when you go for the kind of OnePlus 5T and Honor View 10 price smartphone flagship, so £449, the thing you're going to be sacrificing is that water and dust resistance. But on the Plus, those have headphone jacks. Bit of background, it's more expensive to make a headphone jack water resistant, which is one of the reasons why most flagship phones that are water resistant, in fact basically all except for the Sonys, don't have headphone jacks. Right, on to some of your questions. We have Hugh James asks, should I buy an iPhone 8 Plus or an iPhone 10? I'm coming from 2 dead iPhone SEs. Well, the iPhone SE was a very small phone. I think size-wise, you're going to be more comfortable with an iPhone 10. I called it an iPhone X, but yeah, iPhone 10, because it's smaller than the 8 Plus. It's more similar in size to the SE, but you get a lot more screen, a lot more bang for your buck. But one of the beauties of the SE was the fact it wasn't crazy expensive, whereas the iPhone 10 obviously will likely cost you £1,000 or thereabouts, $1,000 if indeed you're not in the UK and you're in the US. So I'd probably say if you can stretch to the iPhone 10, then the iPhone 10. But if you don't mind the design of the iPhone 8 Plus, don't mind the size. The cameras are very comparable. The performance is very comparable, and you get maybe better value for money just insofar as it is the cheaper of the two phones. Right. We have Steven's question. It finally came through. Galaxy S8 is the way to go. The price is right now. Yes, you're absolutely right. The Samsung Galaxy S8 came out a year ago. I mean, we're going to probably see the Samsung Galaxy S9 at Mobile World Congress. We recorded a rumor roundup. Make sure you check it out if you haven't already. It's looking like a great phone, but the S8 is still a great phone. It has a design that is at least as good, if not better, than most phones on the market right now. That curved OLED display, Quad HD resolution, super nice and sharp, and the battery is decent as well. And of course, you've got the headphone jack. Probably my only thing I don't love about it is the fact that it has a mono bottom firing speaker, which rumors suggest the Galaxy S9 looks set to correct. Omar says you should go for the 8 Plus over the 10, so that's some advice from you. DJ PRS says, boss, good evening. Boss, good evening back at you. Nortus, which phone are you using right now? Samsung Galaxy Note 8. I'm testing out the Mophie battery case for it. And that completely ties into what I was saying earlier. If you do want to get things like a battery case, things like a case in general, just to protect your phone, if you go for a bigger one, then it will add even more size, make it even more unwieldy. And I mean, like I said, I'm struggling with the Note 8 at the moment, just based on the fact I should really keep it in a battery case because it doesn't last as long as I might want it to. Please review the Razer phone. We already have. You can check out the review on techradar.com and on YouTube as well. I want to buy a Gear S3, but I'm in Russia at the moment. That's from Landaga. Landaga, we've got loads of stuff on wearables on TechRadar, but this show is all about smartphones. So I'm going to quickly zip through the rest of your questions and then run on to screen. So we've got Honor View 10. What do you think about the Honor View 10? Honor View 10 is an excellent phone. Weakest points, probably the fact the camera doesn't have optical image stabilization. Like I said, there is no IP68 water and dust resistance, but for the price, it's absolutely fantastic. You're not going to get a better phone when it comes to storage right now, anywhere. 128 gigabytes, and you have a micro SD card. Also, very good screen, 18:9 aspect ratio. Honor's just rolled out an update that gives you face unlock as well as some smart detection features, so when you're lying down the phone won't auto rotate because it tracks which way your eyes are facing. So that kind of really smart stuff. Honor says its AI is interplaying with the user interface, and that's how they're marketing it, but all I see is value adds, which is only a good thing. Also, the Honor View 10 ships with a case in the box and has a pre-fitted screen protector as well, which doesn't add a huge amount of bulk. Win. Hi Basil, do you know if OnePlus has added support for Widvine Level 1 DRM yet? That's from Mano Machine 100. I'm afraid I do not know that. If anyone else in the chat room does though, please feel free to reply. Shout out to Bivan Shajilal, Hugh James. Okay, Hugh says he killed his iPhones due to water damage. So if that's the case, then either the iPhone 8 Plus or the iPhone 10 will be water dust resistant. So you'll be okay with either. We have a few more questions. Mr. Olympia, Pixel 2 XL's best camera phone? Yeah, Pixel 2 XL out of the box is indeed the best camera phone, despite the fact it only has one lens. It's automatic mode, the dynamic range on it is very, very good. Google is incredibly smart with their software. Junaid Wali, should I go for the Pixel 2 XL or Mate 10 Pro? Mate 10 Pro has better battery life. Mate 10 Pro also has a better screen. Even though it isn't quite as sharp, it's just got less of that blue hue off angle. They're both really powerful phones, but what's also nice about the Mate 10 Pro is it has 128 gig as standard and it comes in at less money. I also think the design's a little bit more elegant. That glass back just feels more curvaceous in the front. The value adds in the Mate 10 Pro are, obviously, it comes with a case in the box just like the View 10, and it also has a pre-fitted screen protector, which means that generally speaking the Mate 10 Pro is better value for money. If you can stomach Huawei's user interface, they lay over the top Emotion UI. I personally quite like it, but a lot of people don't. Then it's going to be pretty much the obvious choice. What's also nice is you have the versatility of Emotion UI desktop. All you need to do is purchase a USB to HDMI cable, which is relatively inexpensive online, and you are good to go with a DeX style desktop experience for not that much extra money. So Huawei's really packed in the value adds with its flagship this year. Well, its flagship last year even, and its Mate flagship, not even its P series flagship. We'll likely be seeing the P11 or the P20, whatever it ends up being called, at Mobile World Congress. Cannot wait. We'll all be out there, so stay tuned to the channel for that. What else have we got? Okay, I think that's pretty much it for now. We're going to move on to screen, and there are two main screen technologies at play here. You can go for a OLED display or IPS display. Now there are various names that really mean the same thing, whether it's an IPS, an LCD. Generally they mean very similar things, and they're going to mean that the whites are very pure, generally speaking, always exceptions here, and it emits light even with the black elements of the screen, so it isn't going to give you as deep dark blacks as the other technology, which is OLED. Another word for that would be AMOLED, POLED. They all fall into the same category, and that's organic light emitting diode. So Samsung uses AMOLED, and that's their brand of OLED. LG uses POLED, that's their brand, and if you see OLEDs, that's another manufacturer, likely by the looks of things, and that, for example, is in the Mate 10 Pro. The consensus is that OLED displays are generally more preferable. Like I said, they're punchier, they're deeper. Whites may not be as pure off angle, but they're still really enjoyable to experience. So they can suffer from burn-in, as we've seen in a huge way from the furore surrounding the Pixel 2 XL. LG's panel on that really suffered due to an element within the user interface, which had a very sticky navigation bar, which meant the navigations burn into the screen. So there are considerations. OLEDs generally are regarded as the best. It's on the iPhone 10, for example, too. You also have additional layers of differentiation there. You've got HDR10, or HDR10 plus, or not even HDR10, just HDR, and you've also got Dolby Vision, etc. What these generally denote is just higher dynamic range, and that means that the blacks are purer, but they're also more discernible. So you can, rather than just see a black splodge and a white splodge where the sky is, and a black splodge in the shadow of someone's clothing, you get more range throughout and can therefore make out more of the scene, creating a more immersive viewing experience. Well, once upon a time when we were watching films on 4.3-inch smartphones, that wouldn't have really mattered. But when you consider that Samsung Galaxy Note 8 is 6.3 inches and some tablets out there are 8 inches, we're blurring a lot of lines right now, and HDR10 phones do indeed look better. HDR content on the Mate 10 Pro looks way better than non-HDR content, and you can get HDR content across displays which are OLED and LCD as well. What's also a point to note is resolution. Obviously, generally it's accepted that the pixel per inch you want to go for. What pixel per inch means is how many pixels are in an inch, how many dots of detail. Around 400 is ideal. That's the iPhone 8 Plus, for example. If you have more, then you're going to get a sharper viewing experience, but you're not necessarily going to benefit in the sense that you're not going to see the pixels actually start to break down. So rather than refer to a resolution, whether it's 1080p, whether it's Quad HD, whether it's a weird aspect ratio in the iPhones, you'd rather be better served going with pixels per inch. On most reviews, they do specify, on all of the ones on TechRadar, they specify exactly what the pixels per inch is of most phones, and pretty glad to say every single flagship on the market right now has at least 400 pixels per inch. So that's screens expunged. Any more questions in here? Loads more questions. What I'm probably going to do in that case is I'm going to run through what to look for with your phones, various points, and then I'm going to come back to your questions shortly after. So after we talk about the screen, it's important to pick up on storage, because that's going to dictate really like whether you're going to get an iPhone, which is non-expandable, i.e. there's no memory card slot. Once you decide on the storage capacity, then you have to stick with it, and you are stuck with it. Or you can go with an Android phone, which chances are is expandable, so it takes a micro SD card. Micro SD cards aren't as quick as internal storage, could be a reason why Apple doesn't go with them. They don't offer quite as fast an experience, but on the plus side, they give you a lot of versatility. And when you're changing from one phone to another, it's nice to be able to just take a micro SD card from one, put it in the other, and shabam, you've got all of your pictures on it. But not all Android phones have micro SD cards. You look at the flagships, especially the OnePlus 5T, the Huawei Mate 10 Pro, the Google Pixel 2 XL, no micro SD cards in sight. Though many do. The Samsung Galaxy Note 8, the S8, the S8 Plus, and the LG V30 and G6 all have micro SD cards. So it's very much a case-by-case basis, and it'll come down to what you want from your phone. The argument for SD cards is the fact they give you that versatility. The argument against is that they can potentially impact the design of the phone. So if you're creating an additional slot next to the SIM card slot, then it might mean that the phone just has less room inside to be compact and makes less room for things like the battery, which we'll come on to later. You also want to consider cloud storage. Many phones do come with cloud storage of some capacity, but the Google Pixel phones are the best because they give you unlimited cloud storage for all of your pictures at full resolution and also up to 4K video too. So even though there's no SD card slot and you are paying a little bit more than you might on a Mate 10 Pro, if you don't mind that your pictures are backed up to the cloud rather than hardwired on your device, then that might be the way to go for you. Okay, now storage is important for things like movies and stuff, games, etc. In order to really enjoy them though, if you don't want to be plugging in your headphones, you're going to want to know about speakers. So if your phone is Mate 10 Pro with Pixel 2 XL, most high-end flagships, the Sony Xperia XZ Premium, it'll probably have stereo speakers. That means there's one at the top, one at the bottom, and that'll give you the most immersive experience. This is most true of gaming. I find when I'm gaming on a phone, my grip changes ever so slightly, but it is consistently in landscape. Specifically, I'm playing a lot of Injustice 2 at the moment and pretty much the last 6 months. With phones like the Samsung Galaxy Note 8, the Galaxy S8, the LG V30, my hand would always go over the speaker, and as a result it creates a muffled sound. It's much better enjoyed listening through headphones, whereas phones like the Mate 10 Pro have one front speaker. This is good, but it's not perfect because I still cover up the loudest speaker at the bottom. If you're really concerned about the speaker, you'll want a phone with two front firing speakers, be it the Pixel 2 XL or the Sony Xperia XZ Premium. Those are two great phones for gamers, I would say, in terms of the speakers. What's nice about the Pixel 2 XL is you've got that 18:9 aspect ratio as well, so it could be in many respects the best gaming phone because of the screen speaker setup. But there's also the Razer phone. The Razer phone's exceptional, and I didn't actually touch on this when I was talking about the screen because it has a 120 hertz screen. That means it's 120 frames per second refresh rate, really nice and fast and smooth for games that support it. And the design is also really focused around not letting you cover up those speakers. Two very loud front speakers on either side of the display. And the fact it has very flat top and bottom mean that it's really comfortable to hold when gaming. And it has a very powerful processor and tons of RAM, and I'll come on to those in a bit. But now it's all about the cameras. First thing you'll see when you look at a smartphone spec sheet is the camera megapixel count. This is important, but actually less important than it used to be. As long as you've got around 12 megapixels, you really don't need any more for the main rear camera. What it comes down to after that is the aperture of the lens, whether or not it has optical image stabilization on there, and the size of the actual pixels themselves. Now this is a lot of detail. I would say the most important one of the bunch is optical image stabilization. That means that there's something in there, some mechanical element that's holding the lens steady, compensating for your handshake. The Pixel 2 XL introduced that over the Pixel 2. The Pixel 2 was an amazing camera, but the Pixel 2 XL really did just blow everything else out of the water, because between the Pixel 2's software and that optical image stabilization marrying together in the Pixel 2 XL and the Pixel 2 regular, sorry, the Pixel was an amazing camera, you end up with a phone that has the best of both worlds. There's also something called electric image stabilization, and this is ever improving. Sony's always relied on this for as long as I can remember, and it's good in video, but when it comes to low light photography, that's when Sony phones tend to drop the ball, and that's very likely the reason. Sony tends to go for much higher megapixel phones, which makes a lot of people think to themselves, then it must be better. But actually, because the sensors are really physically big, there are a lot of pixels on there, it's potentially harder to get image stabilization on the lens, and they don't, what that results in is worse low light performance. For the camera, you also want to see the additional shooting modes. If you want a plain shoot automatic picture camera, the Google Pixel 2, Pixel 2 XL, best around. They also have great selfie cameras. But if you want to tinker with your camera, then the Huawei series of devices, Honor series of devices, gives you more versatility than any other smartphone range on the market. Video. How high resolution do you want to shoot? Do you want to shoot 4K? Do you want to shoot full HD? If you want to shoot 4K, most flagships are going to do it. It's going to come down to the chipset in a lot of respects. Snapdragon 8 series chipsets generally have shot 4K for a couple of years. And as a result, any phone above £450 right now will very likely shoot 4K. Some phones like the Nokia 8 can even shoot 4K from the front camera. So if you want the highest resolution selfies around, that will be the one that you'll want to go for. But realistically speaking, unless you've got tons of storage and you specifically want to shoot 4K for a very specific project, you may be better off shooting in 1080p. 4K also, sometimes with phones that have electric image stabilization, deactivates the stabilization, so everything just looks a little bit jerkier. Right, so we've covered everything from the operating system right through, or from the design right through to the camera. But one thing we haven't talked about is operating system. Generally, the consensus is right now it's a two-horse race, iOS and Android. If you're sold into iOS already, I probably wouldn't recommend jumping ship if you're happy. If you've got itchy feet, you want to change, by all means check out the Android camp. But if you're already an Android user, I'd probably say also stick with Android for now. If you jump to iPhones, you get suckered in very, very quickly. You get almost trapped in the ecosystem. It's more constrictive than the Android ecosystem, and that's why I'd recommend for a lot of iPhone users to stick within the iPhone ecosystem, because it's reliably good. It's reliably premium, reliably expensive, but at the same time you do get consistent quality. For the most part, it isn't always perfect. Android users who are comfortable using Android, though, you are generally getting more bang for your buck, and so veering into the iPhone world might well leave you feeling a little bit, well, disappointed after a few months, or potentially even a year or so of using the phone. Still, both of these operating systems have incredible app support. The games on them look akin to console games right about now, and the performance, especially with the latest devices, is exceptional. iPhone 10, iPhone 8, iPhone 8 Plus, smooth as silk, and indeed the latest updates to all the Android Oreo flagships. I will speak about other things. I'll speak about manufacturers, I'll speak about biometrics, I'll speak about battery and extras in a sec, but I'm quickly going to jump into your comments to make sure that I'm not completely ignoring you. And there are there are loads in here. Right, let's kick this off with a shout out to Rob Zamidi. Says, hola, Golam Tahmin, what do you think about the Huawei Mate 10 Pro? That was someone else actually. Mate 10 Pro is easily one of the best phones on the market. It is when it comes to battery and general value for money. You get a lot of bang for your buck there. Okay, thinking of buying a Samsung A5 for £299. That's from Maverick 5381. That's a decent price. A5 was very good. The only downside was, if I remember correctly, and it will depend on which year A5 you go for, the A5 is only 32 gigabytes of storage, so if you're a power user you might fill that up really quickly. Yes, it has an SD card slot, but if you get lots of games on there, then it's going to be a bit of a pain. What I'd probably recommend you do is potentially look to the Honor the Honor 7X. That's got 64 gigabytes of storage, and as a result will just last that bit longer. Although it doesn't have the OLED display, it doesn't have a lot of the beautiful elements such as weather resistance that the A5 does. What do you think of the camera of the new Samsung Galaxy A8? That's from Angel Dimitrov. I haven't tried out the new A8. We've requested one in, so as soon as we've got it we will be sure to let you know. Thanks for that. But if anyone has tried out the A8, let Angel know in the comments. Gemini Licious, wow, that's a username, asks, which is better regarding camera performance, Mate 10, Honor V10 or HTC 11 Plus? HTC 11 Plus, from what I've seen online, I haven't personally used it, that's with one of our reviewers, Andrew, at the moment, looks like a really, really great automatic point shoot camera. I would say, again, Mate 10 and Mate 10 Pro are the best if you want to tinker. In automatic mode, I'd put it probably U11 plus Mate 10 on a V10. But if you want to play about with your phone's manual settings a bit more, I'd probably put the Mate 10 Plus a little bit above. But like I said, that is with the caveat that I haven't personally seen the use of U10 Plus massively myself. I've used it, but not in camera reviews. Sammy Akan love the Note 8, but I'm worried about the battery life. Yeah, Sammy, I'm going to come on to battery life in a bit. There's generally, I guess, a ratio that you want. You want a large capacity battery to the screen size that you have. And the Note 8 has a really, really big screen, but it hasn't got the biggest capacity battery around. And that's why it doesn't last quite as long as I personally would have liked it to. And that's why I find it easier for people who are worried about battery to recommend things like the Huawei Mate 10 Pro. Hugh James, is there any point getting a 9.7-inch iPad with 4G in the UK? If you'll use it, there's point in getting it, but it is looking like the iPad series will be refreshed relatively soon, so it might be worth holding out for that one. Mate 10 or S8 Plus, which is better value for money? That's from Sweet Moo. Sweet Moo, could you specify Mate 10 or Mate 10 Pro? Which one do you mean? If you mean Mate 10 Pro, I'd say if they're the same price, that's a toughie. It depends how much you want a headphone jack and Android 8. The S8 Plus is a better looking phone. They're both water and dust resistant. The S8 Plus also has a better screen as well, though you get more storage with the Mate 10 Pro, 128 gigabytes less with a Mate 10. I'd say the S8 Plus is a definite winner over the regular Mate 10. If you want the Mate 10, if you're talking about the Mate 10 Pro, it's a little bit more even Stevens, so that would potentially change my answer. But I think the S8 Plus is just such a surefire winner right now for the price you can generally get it that I've seen it at. So yeah, S8 Plus is excellent. So too is Mate 10 Pro though. Battery life on the Mate 10 Pro a little bit better, although again, S8 Plus not bad at all. Albert Wesker, hello brother. Hello Albert. Golam Tahmid, do Xiaomi software. So we don't generally get Xiaomi phones here in the UK, so we don't tend to review them as much as we would like to. If there's anyone at Xiaomi out there watching, if you want to send us some Xiaomi phones, by all means do, and we'll do our best to get them reviewed, but that's the reason we don't cover them as much as we would like to. Sami Akan, it's easy trading forex and drawing trend lines on the Note 8. Which battery pack is good for the Note 8? So Sammy's asked about trading forex and drawing trend lines. That I can't help you with. I've drawn a lot on the Note 8. If you search for our speed sketch with the Note 8, you can see I've drawn a Game of Thrones character, and it's really, really enjoyable for drawing. There are apps, loads of apps out there. Autodesk Sketchbook is the one I use, but what I will say is that you will probably want a battery pack, or at least just have an extra external battery on you, and the size of that the price of that, if you go for something like the Mophie, is £89, so that's like £90. So they aren't cheap, and they do add a lot of bulk, though on the plus side, the Mophie Juice Pack does support wireless charging, so you can charge the Juice Pack wirelessly with a wireless charging mat while the phone's in there, so you don't lose that functionality, but you do lose NFC functionality, which is a pain. Gustavo, any battery cases for the iPhone 10? Not that I've personally tried. Albert, any news about BlackBerry? BlackBerry as a brand, yep, they're releasing a Copper Key 1, which is dual SIM variant. We'll expect to see a fair few devices from them at Mobile World Congress. Fingers crossed they're going to be at least as good as the Key 1, because the Key 1 was blooming excellent. Should I care about HDR10 in the V30 and Note 8? That's from Amour Goyal. Yeah, you should, because it makes content look really good, especially in the Note 8. The Note 8 has the best screen around. The Super AMOLED looks super nice, super punchy, and when you are watching HDR content, it just has that extra little bit of va-va-voom, and it differentiates itself. We're at a point where any phone now over £450 that we've reviewed is at least good, but it's the little things that are going to change the phones from being good to being pretty mind-blowing. So I guess your opinion about the XZ1 is negative. That's from Igor. relatively negative, just because right now the battery isn't as big and it just doesn't offer as much. We're really looking forward to the replacement of the XZ1, which will maybe be EFA, but we'll definitely be seeing an XZ premium replacement at Mobile World Congress. Cannot wait. Man, you guys are firing so many questions in here, but I'm gonna skip over a couple, sorry guys, but we need to crack on with this. In fact, I'll come on to you. I'm gonna pause it at Junad Wali's question, so I've highlighted it, I'll come back to it. I need to start talking about manufacturers. So out of all the manufacturers out there, each one tends to have a strength. Like I said, Huawei tends to give you more battery bang for buck than the competition. More bang for buck general. They are charging a little bit less for their smartphone, flagship smartphones at least. LG gives you the most versatility when it comes to video at the moment. The View 10 is also a beautiful looking phone. Samsung gives you the most polish. It's effectively the iPhone of the Android world in a lot of respects. You also pay a fair bit for it, especially when it's just come out, and with a Note 8 device in particular, you do compromise on battery there, but you do get the versatility of the S Pen. It's the only device on the market that has its S Pen. The Apple iPhone range in its entirety is smooth, it's stable for the most part, and it's expensive, and you pay for what you get, and that is generally reliable quality. When you look at Sony, you do get stereo speakers, you do get 4K shooting, you do get a lot of cool stuff, and that 960 frames per second slow-mo, but it feels like Sony in the last year or two has maybe been a little bit late to the game with trading up for the 18:9 aspect ratio screens and just becoming cutting edge. So I can't wait for 2018 to change that around. Sony also hasn't been the best when it comes to battery and low light camera performance. So again, something that we want to see hopefully rectified at Mobile World Congress. Other manufacturers, including HTC, they're delivering amazing phones. Like the HTC U11 Plus is really good, but they're not nailing it when it comes to getting traction with users. People aren't buying their phones, and as a result, we're seeing less and less of them in high street stores. But if they continue on this trajectory, at the very least, they'll have some very good smartphones on the market. But they're really focusing hard and heavy on Vive, on their VR experience. Razer is doing some really fun stuff with their Razer phone. The reviews of it were lukewarm in a lot of ways. The camera didn't blow anyone away, but what you do have is the Razer Linda, which is the laptop, and we'll come on to accessories in a bit. That's going to be a real differentiator. If you can plug your Razer phone into a laptop, use the screen as a trackpad, and then you've got a really comfortable laptop experience, it could be really sweet. I can't wait to review that myself. You have other manufacturers, obviously. Honor is a subsidiary of Huawei, and they generally share similar kinds of strengths, but Honor just comes in at a slightly lower price point with water and dust resistance removed from their phones, and they keep the headphone jack, which is an interesting one. They also tend to lose the stereo speakers as well. And of course you've got OnePlus, and OnePlus and Honor seem to be the most direct competitors. The last one I'm going to talk about for now is Nokia. Nokia is actually getting better as time goes on. The software updates to the Nokia 8 have meant that it's actually now a decent phone. We had some really buggy issues with ours when we first got it, but what we've ended up with is a phone that has a Snapdragon 835 in it, has tons of RAM, a Quad HD screen, and is really affordable as well. It's coming in at like the £400 to £500 price range, so it's actually competing directly with a OnePlus 5, OnePlus 5T on a View 10, and offering comparable specs, in fact more resolution than the competition. Though in that kind of price range, it doesn't have an 18:9 aspect ratio, and that might put some people off. Right. Next thing you'll want to know is biometrics. So you're going to use face unlock, you can use a fingerprint scanner, you can use iris unlock. Fingerprint scanner is generally the most kind of widely accepted as the norm. If it has face unlock that just does it using the front camera, that's probably the least secure face unlock around. That's on a View 10 and the OnePlus 5T. If it has something like an iris scanner like the Samsung Galaxy Note 8, that's a little bit more secure. If you go with Apple's iPhone 10, the face unlock using the infrared, that is like next level, but they had to do that because they sacrificed completely on the fingerprint scanner. You generally do want some biometric security on your phone, and if you do opt for something like Face ID or a fingerprint scanner, it also means you're going to enable Android Pay, provided or Apple Pay, provided your phone has NFC, near field communication, so you can tap it on a terminal and pay. Then that will leave you happy even if you don't have your credit cards on you. Battery capacity. You'll want to be like looking for pretty much 3000 milliamps as a minimum number nowadays with flagship phones. Anything less than that, and there's a very good chance you might not see it through a day. If your screens go bigger than 5.5 inches, anything under 3000 milliamps should really start to make you question things, and that's when you'll really want to be looking at reviews of phones to make sure that the software and the processors are optimized well. I'd say the best battery phones, I've said this a few times, are the Huawei Mate 10 Pro. The Google Pixel 2 XL is exceptionally good. In spite of not packing the hugest battery, OnePlus 5T actually ranked really well for battery rating. But Mate 10 Pro tends to win all of our battery tests. The iPhone 10 actually is pretty good as well in spite of packing a small cell, and that's largely due to the OLED technology. I didn't mention this earlier, but OLED technology tends to be a little bit more efficient than LCD technology when you are talking about battery saving capabilities, especially when displaying blacks. Like I said, when displaying blacks, OLED screens don't tend to emit light, or that's one of the selling points. How true it is varies from OLED to OLED, but they are more power efficient with blacks. There's also a really important point to note. These phones support added extras. So whether it is that Linda experience I spoke about with the Razer phone, whether it's simply being able to plug a phone, an HMHL plug into the bottom of a phone, i.e. a USB plug output to a TV for presentations, or whether it can create a desktop experience like Samsung's DeX, Huawei's EMUI desktop experience. All these things are going to be things you're going to want to factor in, as well as the box contents as well. Huawei and Honor phones ship with the cases, as does the new OnePlus 5T. Nice little value add, and if it ships with a case, there's a good chance it's a really nice form-fitting case that doesn't add too much bulk to your device. But Samsung phones, Apple phones, they don't ship with cases, and Apple phones don't even ship with fast chargers, which is a real shame. Fast chargers can charge your battery in double time. So for example, with half an hour of charge on most flagships nowadays, you'll be able to get at least half a day's worth of usage out of them. Also, does it come with headphones? You've got some really nice punchy value adds in the LG V30 box. So B&O optimized headphones, B&O tuned. You've got AKG tuned headphones in new Samsung phone boxes, and the rumors are that the Samsung Galaxy S9 may even ship with wireless AKG headphones. If it loses a headphone jack, then that would be a really nice sweetener that would make a lot of people who would otherwise be upset potentially a little bit more forgiving to Samsung, and that is what you're going to look for when you're picking up your phone. Right, I'm going to quickly scan through what you're saying and answer any of your questions before we call it a day. But if you've got anything particular, now's the time to get it into the live chat. So Junaid Wali says, yeah, I really love the desktop experience on the Mate 10 Pro, and I agree with you about it being excellent bang for buck. Glad you do. I'm glad you're, by the sounds of it, having good experiences with the phone. Samsung's micro LED could be used in smartphones down the line. Samsung introduced something called micro LED at CES. This is a new technology that enables minimal bezels. It's shrunk the size of LEDs so that you can have like everything from no burn-in, because there aren't any organic elements, right through to literally no bezels, and it could be a game changer. But we haven't seen it in anything beyond, I think, 140 or 160 inch panel as of yet, so it's a long way down the line. But that's a really nice bit of future gazing there. Thank you for that, Aditya, sorry. Prakar Patel says, perfect month for buying a new device. Actually, it isn't. Next month will be the perfect month, or the month after even. After Mobile World Congress, when the new devices get announced, that's when this current generation of devices prices are going to go through the floor. And that's when you'll be in the best position to decide, do you want to get the Samsung Galaxy S9 or do you want to opt for an S8 Plus? Hugh James, I've got 2 terabytes on family storage on my iCloud. Is 64 gigabytes on Apple products enough in real life usage? Personally, if you get an iPhone, you'll want to keep it for at least 2 years, I reckon. And 64 gigabytes, if you're going to shoot 4K video, will probably fill up in that time. If you don't mind offloading every now and then and you're organized about that, it could well be enough. But I'd personally opt for 128 gigabytes or 256 gigabytes, depending on whether you get an old iPhone that supports those capacities or indeed the new one. Unboxing Mania, when will picture-in-picture mode work? with the YouTube app in Android 8, I have the Xperia XZ running on Oreo, and the feature only works in Google Maps. Yep, unboxing mania, that is very true, but it does work in VLC player, so bear that in mind. But yeah, the fact it doesn't work in YouTube is annoying. You can use picture-in-picture with InTouch, so Samsung optimizes it by having a floating window. So there are ways around it, and that even works on Android 7, because sadly the Note 8 doesn't have Android 8 just yet. Amur Goyal, you need YouTube Red for that. Bam, thank you. Here in the UK, unfortunately, we do not have YouTube yet as of yet. YouTube Red as of yet. Louis Taylor decided to order an LG V30 to replace my HTC U11. Both excellent phones. LG V30 has a nicer design, I reckon, and you'll enjoy that video camera. It's really nice having that wide angle lens, a lot of utility there, and the f1.6 aperture for video as well means that it's better than most in low light. Kingers, any news on the Huawei P11 spec release date? Cost? No news just yet, but we do know we've been invited to Mobile World Congress press event from Huawei, and yeah, that's on the horizon, so it will be coming out. The rumors are that it's got 3 cameras, yep, not 1, not 2, but 3 around the back. Potentially, the rumors I think of the HTC are that it's got 2 front cameras. So if it has 2 front cameras, and like the Huawei rumors has 3 rear cameras, that's 5 cameras total. What's this world coming to? Time will tell though, so stay tuned. techradar.com. I'm thinking about buying a new phone and have to decide between a OnePlus 5T, Samsung Galaxy S8. Where I'm living, they cost about the same. I would go for the Galaxy S8 personally. OnePlus 5T is excellent, but that 18:9 aspect ratio and that screen just mean that the S8 is a winner 9 times out of 10 for me. Is 6 GB of RAM necessary for a new smartphone? That's cool, Circle. I would say that it's very, very welcome. Definitely, especially if you're gaming, heavy multitasking, etc. When you've got loads of background applications running, background processors, the more RAM you have, the more they're going to be able to stay open, so you'll be able to multitask between applications that you had open a longer time ago. But if you're not really a power user, 4 GB will be ample, and 6 will just be a nice to have, and it's always nice to have nice to haves. Is the U11 Plus camera better than the Galaxy S8? I haven't tried them side by side. My guesstimation is that it is. It uses the same sensor as the Pixel 2 XL, and there's some sharing of software there between Google and HTC, so maybe, but like I said, I do not know. Make sure you check out direct comparisons between those 2 phones before you make your purchasing decision. And that is all of your questions, and this went on way longer than I intended it to, but I enjoyed it so much because you were all asking loads and loads of questions. Hopefully you found it useful and enjoyed it all at the same time. If we've missed anything out in there, if I missed any of your questions, fire them into the comment section. Please, if anyone can answer any of the questions that I couldn't, do so, and check in back with Tech Radar on Thursday, where we'll have another live show. Also, it is currently Fitness Week on techradar.com. This is an entire week dedicated to fitness tech. You might have seen I've uploaded a beginner's guide to fitness tech on YouTube. That's where I run through everything from head to toe to do with fitness. We've got 2 personal trainers on the Tech Radar team. I used to be one, and so did Andrew London. So we're in a really great position to talk about fitness tech in general, and that's exactly what we'll be doing on Thursday. So prep your questions for that. Check out techradar.com, and also when you do watch the beginner's guide to fitness tech, there's a little eye in the top right hand corner that'll take you to 3 diaries that people are like sharing their experiences with the Move Now, the Apple Watch, and the Garmin Forerunner 935, I think it is. 3 of the hottest fitness tech gadgets on the market right now. But as for me, I'm Tech Radar. I've been Basil. Thanks for watching. Have an excellent week, guys, and thank you so much for all of your comments. Bye.